that one might have been a little bit of a layup. Meanwhile, speaking of Watson, here we go. Our Dan Graziano reports that Watson met with the new coach in Houston, David Culley, last week. And in that meeting, Watson reiterated his desire to be traded. He told Culley he has no plans to play for the Texans again. And then as this reporting was coming out yesterday, Deshaun went on Twitter and posted, "Loyalty is everything. Don't you ever forget it," which is fascinating, but doesn't really tell us anything. So let's start with what we know. Jeremy Fowler, what do we know? What is the latest with Deshaun and the Texans?
Well, Greeny, I'm hearing that Watson very well may sit out games if he's not traded. That's a strong possibility on the table for the player. He could incur millions of dollars of fines if he sits out the preseason and training camp. But from what I'm told, the relationship is, quote, too far gone. That's what a source told me. Now, he's looking at potential teams. He's got a short list. It's up to the Texans to make something happen. You know, he's looking at teams in the top 10, like a Denver or a Carolina, that are intriguing, that could make an aggressive play, have some young pieces on their lineup. And the Jets and Dolphins cannot be discounted because of all the draft capital they have. But both sides very much dug in. In fact, a lot of people around the league believe that Nick Caserio, the new GM, is not going to budge at all until at the very earliest, late April, around draft time.
Late April, so that the draft is the last weekend of April this year. But quickly, Jeremy, all the reporting we've had this week suggests that to this point, the Texans aren't even accepting calls on this. Is that your understanding, that they're not giving any indication that they're willing to trade him?
Yeah, everybody I've talked to that's at least felt around the situation says that the door has been completely shut and that this is the guy from the Patriot way to do it. That if somebody's going to stick to their guns, it's going to be this guy.
All right, so we're at a standoff. And Orlovsky, you have been saying to me for weeks on this show and saying to our audience, like, he's not going back there. So if he's not going back and they're not going to trade him, Dan, how does this play out?
Well, that relationship is beyond repair. Listen, being stubborn is good. Being greedy is bad. And this is what greed would look like for Houston. At some point, they have to stop being stubborn about the situation and realize their greediness to hold him hostage is going to hurt their organization. They've got 61 days until Thursday night, opening night of the draft. 61 days to figure this out. Very clear. So what needs to happen? Get on the phone. You have an asset into the NFL that is probably one of the top 5 assets in all of the NFL, in the whole league. And I've said this multiple times, and I think Mike Tannenbaum was the first. Miami and the Jets. Let's pit them against each other with the multiple first-round picks of this draft, because the relationship is beyond repair. What does Houston get playing hardball long-term here? What is going to be the benefit for their organization? The reality is they are in a 2 to 3 year rebuild. Even then, keeping Deshaun Watson is not going to help your rebuild. You'd have to redo his contract by the time the rebuild is actually done. So at the end of the day, stop being selfish with your organization and realize the player needs to get moved.
To be clear, for those who don't know, and Bart Scott will come to you on this, the Jets have 2 first-round picks this year, including number 2 overall. The Dolphins have 2 first-round picks this year, including number 3 overall. Both those teams also have young quarterbacks that some people may like, right? The Jets have Sam Darnold. The Dolphins have Tua Tagovailoa. What makes sense to you, Bart Scott?
Well, I think, either one of those options, I think could be good for them. It'd be ironic if they go back and take the picks back from Miami that they gave up from Laremy Tunsil. But it's one of those things that you have to, keep in perspective who we're talking about in the organization. Bob McNair, before he passed, said, during the anthem things, we can't allow the prisoners to run, or the inmates to run the prison. Well, that means that, billionaires are sometimes stubborn, and they become successful because they're stubborn. And I think that they're going to try and see if he's willing to be Carson Palmer, if he's willing to sit out, and if he's willing to forfeit all that money. I think this is going to be an ugly divorce. I think it's got to get a lot worse, and I think they're going to try and see if he's really about that life. And we don't see that until after the draft. And after the draft, I think the Jets will be in a position to be able to make more a better case, because if they're going to move down, which is projected, then that means they can get another first-round pick. And we're talking about selling 2020, 2022 first-round draft picks, and the Jets can potentially have 3. And that'll be everything that you need to get better in 1 year, not having it spread out over a course of years.
All right, well, we will see. Again, this is a situation that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. This quarterback The very end of Super Bowl 49, Russell Wilson throwing what I suppose is the most famous interception in Super Bowl history. Malcolm Butler picks it off, and nothing has ever been the same again, it would seem. The Patriots win the Super Bowl. The Seahawks have not been back. Rob Ninkovich, who was with us today, was on the field for that play. But it has felt like, and you see the date there, I mean, we're going back 6 years now. But on some level, Jeremy Fowler, it feels like everything has just never been quite fine in Seattle since that moment. There were all the questions about whether they should have just given the ball to beast mode, whatever the relationships were there. Yeah. All the issues on the relationships with the defense and the Legion of Boom, all of whom are gone now, and it's become Russell's team. Pete Carroll obviously in the mix. But it has felt from that moment forward like all has not been just fine in Seattle.
Well, Graney, it's quite simple. Russell Wilson believes that Seattle should be back in the Super Bowl. And since that's not happening, he's trying to provide input to the personnel department, to Coach Pete Carroll, to help make that happen. He has ideas. He feels like those ideas are being met with, okay, that's nice, but maybe a little resistance. So here we are. That's why he went public with his frustrations. And it boiled over in November. There was a meeting with the team and coaches and Russell Wilson, and he wanted input. It didn't go the way he liked, so he stormed out of the room. That was a true story that was reported in The Athletic. And so I'm told that Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson are still on very good terms. Pete Carroll is hearing Russell Wilson's frustrations, particularly with the offensive line. He understands they want to upgrade in spots there where they can. So they feel like it's still salvageable, but it could be inevitable that these parties part one day.
Bart, what is your sense of the dynamics of the relationships there?
I mean, listen, we see, the situation in Houston is very similar. You're not respecting my football acumen. You're not respecting the fact that I'm one of the best players in the league, that I know what I need to be successful. We watched terrific Tom go down there and say, you know what, I need a receiver. Well, no, but we already got Chris Godwin and Edwards. No, I want Antonio Brown. Okay, well, I have OJ the Juice Man and Cameron Brate. I want Gronk. Yeah, but we got two great tight ends. No. Okay, so if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm saying, when do I get my input about what I need? Nobody knows my game and what I need to be successful better than me. So you're not, if I haven't proven to you that I'm a great football player, that I'm a guy that can think the game as well, then you have to respect my football acumen. And if you don't, then we have an issue here, because you think I'm just a player that should just go out and play football and not be able to have input on what I think will be successful and make me successful. So now we have a real problem. So of course I'm going to storm out, because you're not respecting me as a man. You're not respecting my football acumen. And when you don't respect my football acumen, then we have a real issue, because I know this game probably better than you, because I've seen it from the behind the eyes of a face mask. You haven't.
Yeah, so there's that dynamic between Wilson maybe and the organization. And then, Nico, you were making an interesting point this morning about the way that all the relationships will be strained when there is a moment like that one that we began there. Again, you were on the field for that interception that changed absolutely everything for two franchises and a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, look, listen, after that game, what was the narrative of that? That every single player on that team was being asked, well, why didn't they run the football? You have Marshawn Lynch, who had rushed for touchdowns in that game, and we had a hard time stopping him. So when you look at that play in particular, and you see, I guess, the whole team watch that play on the sideline and basically just fall over and fall down, because they're realizing the actuality that they lost the football game off an interception. So, I mean, that probably did a lot of damage within that locker room. The coaching staff, the quarterback, everybody was questioning that particular play. I wasn't. I was very happy with that play selection.
I would imagine that you were. Go ahead, Bart.
Yeah.
Well, Nico, I've always wanted to ask you this, because I said that was the correct play call, because as I look at that, only a few people will know, like me and you, that you guys were in cover zero, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So that means that you have more than they can block. Right, so it was a legal pick route, which is the right play. So everybody on that team could be upset but Russell Wilson, because they decided to put the ball in his hands and not Marshawn Lynch's hands. And usually a legal pick play works 1,000% of the time. So when people always say, hey, you should have had handed the ball off to Beast Mode, yes. But would Beast Mode probably had a guy stop or a loss? Yes, because you have an unblockable player that can't get blocked, that can hit you in the backfield. So so for Russell Wilson to be upset about that play, he shouldn't be, because they believed in him, and it was just a great play by the right time.
So I think that in order to wrap this up, there's only one way to appropriately do it. Rob Ninkovich, again, the pride of Joliet, Illinois. Russell Wilson has named the Chicago Bears as one of the teams he might go to. The Bears have been in existence since 1920 and have never had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards in a season. What do you think Russell Wilson's addition would mean in Chicago?
All right, Grinny, let me get in character real quick for you, okay? I'm sitting here in the city of broad shoulders, Chi-Town, Chicago, the Windy City, where definitely we would love to have Russell Wilson. You think about Russell Wilson, what he could bring to Chicago, bring to the Bears. We would win the Super Bowl every single year. Think back to this. I woke up this morning, and I had myself a dozen egg omelet with Polish sausage inside. It was the best thing, grilled onions, everything.